Training camp starts tomorrow. Can you believe it? We're going to preview training camp, and we've got some news on Peyton Krebs to talk about coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Be sure to check us out on our YouTube channel as well. And if you want to join our Locked On Sabres text club, you could do that by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSabres. You sign up there and you can text us questions. You can text us comments. I got a couple to look through a little bit on today's show, as we did have some news that we are going to talk about. Peyton Krebs finally, the eve of training camp, finally gets the deal done with the Buffalo Sabres. Also, as we head into training camp, I've got 6 battles to talk about at camp. 5 training camp battles to talk about coming up that start tomorrow. We'll make their way through the preseason, and we'll see how they look when we get to the start of the regular season, which is only a couple of weeks away. The preseason begins in 4 days. 5 days? Today's Tuesday. 5 days. Saturday. It is 4 days. Okay, hard to do math. You know, it's early in the morning here. Give me a break. Anyways. Saturday against the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Sabres are going to be on the ice at KeyBank Center playing hockey before the next time the Bills are on the field playing football at Highmark Stadium. So I'm excited for it, and it's going to be rocking and rolling, right? Hockey's different than football. Football, you have a couple of weeks at training camp before you get to the preseason. Hockey, it's like you show up on Wednesday. I think they're on the ice for their first day of practice on Thursday, and then bam, couple of practices and you're on the ice for the preseason, just like that. The Sabres have already been in town. I've seen pictures of them at Harbor Center skating around with each other on the auxiliary ice. And these guys are skating all year round, right? It's not like it was in the 90s or before that where you took the summer off, you didn't touch the ice. Like now, these guys are skating almost all year round around, other than really like when they're in Europe or something on vacation. And a lot of them are skating together, right? Peterka and Luukkonen, I know, have been spending a bunch of time this summer over in Europe, and I'm sure they've been skating together once in a while. I don't know that. I'm just guessing. Anyways, not like they'll be completely rusty, but they'll get that polish on, and we'll start to get into what the roster is going to look like. So a lot on that coming up on today's show. Sticky Joe DiBiase joining you today. A couple of the texts revolve around the breaking news alert that we had this morning for you, that the Buffalo Sabres have signed Peyton Krebs to a 2-year contract extension with a total of $2.9 million. That is a cap hit of $1.45 million. And this was a long negotiation. It's kind of funny that they went this long, quibbling probably over, I'd guess, a couple of $100,000, but I got a couple of questions from some texters like, hey, I don't remember if you ever speculated on the AAV for Krebs on the show. Like, does this seem appropriate? Another person said it's a little high, right? $1.45 million. Someone else texted in overpayment, but getting bent out of shape over $600,000 is dumb. I'm kind of that way. Like, I don't really even think it's an overpayment. All right. Like, I just think when we're talking about bottom 6 players that make less than $2 million per year, especially for a team that is pretty committed right now, it feels like, to not spend to the cap, I'm just not that worried about it, right? Oh, was he really worth $1.1 million and they gave him $1.45? You can't get me up caring about $300,000 on this Sabres cap picture. So fine. $1.45 million. I got no problems with that deal whatsoever. The 2-year length of it, I've also got no problems with that contract. And because it's a 2-year contract, Krebs will be a restricted free agent again in 2 years when he's 25 years old. So if he takes a step forward and they want to retain him in the future, then they'll have the rights to be able to do that. So Krebs, I always thought to this point, the fact that it went this long, it just never made sense to me that they were quibbling over money. It would have made more sense to me if they were more at odds about playing time and a role on the team. Like I'm not even sure he's promised. I would predict right now he's not on the opening night roster going into this season. So, that could have been what it was about. And maybe, this is a complete guess, maybe they were trying to find a landing spot for him. Maybe Krebs wanted a landing spot somewhere else. And the Sabres maybe were willing to do it, but it just never fell the right way. Maybe the value wasn't there, or maybe a team wasn't ready to offload an asset to make him a regular part of the rotation. I don't know. But I'm okay with him being back on the team. I just think at this point he is a depth player. And my overall take on Krebs, I've had a bit of a journey with my takes on Peyton Krebs because I liked Peyton Krebs a lot for a couple of years there. But a lot of it was based in the upside of I haven't seen this guy play with skilled players. And you got a little look at that last year. It didn't look good. And now that you go into year 5 of him as a Buffalo Sabre, year 4 as a Buffalo Sabre, it's just I can't believe that another center on this team is going to go from failed prospect to, wow, top 6 center. The Sabres have had that happen twice in the last 5 years with Tage Thompson and Casey Millsat. So maybe that's proof that it could happen. It's also, man, you're already you're playing the odds a little bit. I feel like you already got, more than you were asking for twice. So you're going to get it a third time? Maybe. I do wonder if Don Granato, who made it work with a lot of other skilled players with the Buffalo Sabres, was great at developing. I wonder if he ruined Peyton Krebs. I've had that wonder. Did he played too long on a fourth line with Kyle Okposo and Zemgus Girgensons, who drilled into him, simplifying the game, playing along the boards, making the easy plays. And I wonder if a player that was drafted because of his offensive sense, his playmaking ability, and his skill played too long with guys that are not that. Played too long with guys that play the opposite style. And he has a style of play that is now drilled into him that prevents him from growing offensively. And that's just where we're at. Like, I don't know that there's ever any coming back from that. He might just be a bottom 6 spare part at this point. I hope there's more there, but at this point, that's what he is. He's a bottom 6 spare part in the lineup. One other thing that's, I guess, kind of newsy that's not really Sabre related. I'm going to kind of make it Sabre related here before we get into our camp battles for training camp coming up. Monday in Washington, D.C., there was like an informal skate amongst the Capitals players, kind of like the Sabres at Harbor Center, like I mentioned. And Alex Ovechkin left early. And maybe there was a little bit out there like, oh, maybe he got hurt. He's going into his age 39-year-old season. And then I saw that. And then I saw the Capitals today announce they are bringing back the Screaming Eagle jersey. The ones that Ovi won in his rookie year, black with the eagle. You know the ones I'm talking about. And I thought about it. I saw the schedule for it, and I'm like, ooh, let me look at the Capitals schedule. Where are we on the Ovechkin goal chase? It's going to be, to me, the number one story league-wide in the regular season. Because he could do it this year. It will be tough, but it is possible for him to get there. So if you look at right now where Alex Ovechkin stands, he is sitting, going into this age 39 season, at 853 career goals. Wayne Gretzky's career is 894 career goals. So he is 41 goals away from tying Wayne Gretzky. He is 42 goals away from passing Wayne Gretzky for the all-time goals record, which will be the most incredible record ever broken in my lifetime in the NHL. How many times has he gotten to 42 goals in recent memory? Well, last year he didn't, 31. Okay, so he took a step back. Year before that, 42. Year before that, 50. Those were his 2 previous full seasons. This year he needs 42 to exceed it. He needs 41 to match it. It's going to be tight, and it might happen right at the end of the regular season. And I was wondering, like, hey, what are the odds that Ovechkin breaks the goal record here in Buffalo. This season, it's almost zero because the Sabres only listen to this. This is the NHL scheduling quirks. The Sabres only host the Capitals one time this year. That's it. The Sabres will host the Washington Capitals on January 14th. Wait, let me double check that. No, it's December 14th. They're at Washington. January 6th. Monday, January 6th, the Capitals are in town. It's the middle of the season. He's not going to have 41 goals by the middle of the season. He could break it against the Sabres in DC. And if I'm the Capitals, I might want to try to have him break the record in DC anyway. So the game to circle on your Sabre calendars this year, even if it doesn't matter for the Sabres in the standings, which you hope it does. The 10th to last game, so game number 72 for the Sabres this year, is at the Washington Capitals. It's a 3 o'clock Sunday game on March 30th. That game, there's a real possibility, if he's having a great year, a 40-plus goal season, there's a chance that Ovi breaks the record that game against the Buffalo Sabres. And they could be, I don't know if that was one of the Screaming Eagle games. I think it wasn't. So keep an eye on that. If not, maybe we go to next season, and if the Sabres play them early on, then maybe he breaks the record early on next year. So that's a big league-wide story that I'm going to be tracking throughout the year. And I think it'd be, you don't want anyone scoring against the Sabres, but it'd be cool, right? If OV, who would you want him to score it against? Who would he want to score it against? The Penguins, maybe? When do they play the Penguins? Home Thursday, March 27th, 3 days before they play the Sabres. Okay, I bet you the league is going to want him to do it that day. So if you're into conspiracy theories, maybe circle the Penguins game a couple of days before that. Sidney Crosby, by the way, 2-year extension, $8.7 million per year. He will be ending his career with the Penguin as a Penguin, no doubt. All right, back to the Sabres. When we come back, I've got 5 training camp battles to look forward to at Sabres training camp. That's ahead here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are presented here on the show by FanDuel Sportsbook. You've been hearing us talk all about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. We got something a little different for you because now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. So you only got a few more days to take advantage of this offer, so make sure you do it. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you could cancel at any time. Go to FanDuel.com. You could check out all the upcoming hockey odds. You could look at the Sabres for the division, the Sabres on their over-under point total, which is 87.5. And if you're looking for some action on hockey this year, FanDuel Sportsbook is the place to be. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Be sure to check out the Locked On Bills podcast with our buddy Joe Marino as the Bills are rolling into Highmark Stadium again. They'll play Jacksonville on Monday Night Football. So a few days still between now and the game. All right, let's get to some training camp battles for the Buffalo Sabres. Camp starts tomorrow. I think, though, they're going to be on the ice for the first time on Thursday with Lindy Ruff. I think they report tomorrow on Wednesday. Saturday, preseason against the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm going to rope preseason into training camp for the sake of conversation here. 5 training camp battles. #1 training camp battle to look forward to. Top line left wing. So, top line left wing, there is a heavy favorite for this, and it is J.J. Peterka. No doubt. It is J.J. Peterka. The reason I included this as one of the battles is that J.J. Peterka has history playing with Dylan Cousins and Jack Quinn. It's been one of the Sabres' best lines. In fact, it's over a 3-year or a 2-year stretch. It's only second to that Skinner-Thompson-Tuck line, and that line you can't make anymore because Skinner's gone. So that line was a staple for the Sabres. It was their #2 line, and they played together a lot. And if Lindy Ruff sees the chemistry on display there, maybe he'll be open to moving Peterka back with Cousins and fill in the Thompson-Tuck line with somebody else. And if that does happen, and I don't think that's unrealistic, I wouldn't predict it, but I don't think it's unrealistic, then that spot suddenly becomes available. And I only see 3 players being capable of playing well enough to take a top line spot. Number 1 for that would be Zach Benson, who got a little bit of run last year with Tage. Not a lot, but a little bit of run last year with Tage Thompson. And Benson could be someone that if he takes a huge step forward, you're going to want him to play on a top line with Tage. I could see them in the future, maybe not this year, but it's sometime in the future, being a really nice mesh for each other. Benson, with his playmaking and his all-around game, can almost be a perfect line mate for more of an offensive center like Tage Thompson. And I do think the hockey sense that Benson provides versus Tage with more of that raw power and talent would be a really nice combination. You've got the raw talent and power and size combined with the super elite hockey IQ. There's a day in the future that I like that combo. I'm just not sure if he's ready for it right now, but that's what camp is for. The other 2 names that I think are capable of taking that left spot on the first line, if it's not going to be Peterka, Jason Zucker, because of his extensive experience playing with Evgeny Malkin in Pittsburgh, he knows what it's like to be a supplementary player on a top line with an elite centerman. And 2 years ago, it was only 2 years ago, playing with Evgeny Malkin, again, he's not driving a lot of play. He's definitely opportunistic. He is, riding shotgun to the other line mates, but he had 27 goals playing in that role in Pittsburgh 2 years ago. So you could do worse. The final name that I think could get it is Jiri Kulich, but he'd have to have a whale of a camp, whale of a preseason. Now, I saved this for talking about Kulich here and then with top 6 winger. Kulich capped off his amazing prospects challenge that we talked about on our last show with a 2-goal performance against the Penguins prospects on Monday. Sabres lost 8-5, but Jiri Kulich was, again, putting the goal in the back of the net. By all accounts, he dominated that tournament and looked like the best player on the ice. So again, a good start for Kulich, and if he continues that into camp, he's going to make it really hard for them to say no to him. Training camp battle number 2. There was some overlap with training camp battle number 1, but I'm going to add some names to this. Top 6 winger. The main combatants for this role, I think, are Zach Benson and Jason Zucker. And these are 2 players that are going to probably be playing with Dylan Cousins. That's probably the spot that's available. So you have Zucker. We'll hear it from him when they get there tomorrow. Zucker is the speed guy with Cousins. I don't know that I think there's some overlap there. I think that could work, of course. They could move really fast together. But Benson, again, kind of like with Tage, I think he's a nice complement. He's a nice support for a guy like Dylan Cousins. So I like the idea of Benson. The other names, Kulich, of course, who I just talked about, is a spot option for line 2, left winger. Jordan Greenway is an option. My least favorite option, but an option. Don Granato went to him in the top 6, and in situations where they're trying to tie a game late, he went to Jordan Greenway a couple of different times. Coaches sometimes, and Lindy's done this in the past, but coaches sometimes like the idea of pairing their skill up top with one guy, a bigger guy, a physical guy that, quote unquote, can create space for their line mates. I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but Lindy might. And that to me means Greenway would be the idea for someone that could be on the top 6. The other 2, which are long shots, Isak Rozan, who had 5 assists at the Prospects Challenge, but was reading Paul Hamilton from WGR on him this morning, and he's like, I wanted more. I wanted more from Rozan. Like, he was not dominating that tournament the way he should. And the way it sounds to me from reading him and others is, and watching some of what I did myself, that Rozan was just kind of piling up assists because Jiri Kulich was putting his passes in the back of the net. That's fine, right? Like, but the passes weren't like, they were power play setups. He was maybe getting his numbers boosted a little bit because Kulich was doing so well. And then finally, the last name I'll put in this list is Konsta Helenius, the Sabres' first-round pick from 2024. Again, a long shot. He looked good to me at the Prospects Challenge. Didn't put up a lot of points, but always around the puck, always making the right play. I liked him a lot. Definitely going to be small and immature, but his style, maybe there's something there, and maybe there's something there right away. And if they like their bottom six, they want him in more of a skilled role. And Dylan Cousins, who's brought rookies along with him in the past, maybe they want Cousins as the right line mate. Long shot. Put Consta Hellenis at the bottom of that list. I've got 3 more camp battles for you when we come back on the Sabres blue line and maybe one in net. That's coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase. All right, final segment here of the Locked On Sabres podcast. How are we doing, everybody? We ready? We ready for hockey? Got a new mural going up in front of the arena. I don't know if I'm ready. Like, we'll get into this more a little bit in the coming weeks, but I sense less excitement and optimism and juice about this Sabres team going into the year than we did 1 year ago. And that, I guess, is a little deflating. But I'm still fired up. I love when hockey comes back and, ignorance is bliss. Maybe this is the year. Right? Maybe. One of these years it is going to actually be the year. Maybe it'll be the year when they surprise us a little bit rather than when we're most expecting it. I got 3 more camp battles for you that the Sabres, I think, are going to have leading into the regular season. We went through top 6 winger and first line left winger, which, some overlap there, of course. Camp battle number 3, it's a 2-man battle, in my opinion. It is, who is the 4th center on this roster? We know Tage Thompson is one. We know Dylan Cousins is one. We know that Ryan McLeod is one. No doubt Ryan McLeod is definitely one of their 3 centermen. Who's 4th? Sam Lafferty, who they signed to play in the bottom 6. Lafferty, though, has versatility. You can have him in your lineup and not have him at center. He plays all 3 positions up front. Or a guy that has not necessarily proven to be able to play all 3 spots up front, but definitely can play center and has played mostly center, and that's Peyton Krebs, who the Sabres signed today. Can Krebs wrestle away one of the center spots from Sam Lafferty and push Lafferty to the wing and maybe kick Jordan Greenway out of a spot, maybe kick Nicholas Aube-Kubel out of a spot? Can Peyton Krebs unseat? I think Lafferty is the favorite right now. I know Krebs is the incumbent, but I think Lafferty is the guy to beat for this spot. I think Krebs could do it. He could be the type of player that Lindy Ruff likes. I think, there's a little Derek Roy in Peyton Krebs, a guy that Lindy used all the time. That's a smaller center. That's a good 2-way player that, Roy, when he was younger, had that little bit of, what's the word that I'm really looking for? That little rat is kind of not the right word, but a little bit of aggression, right? A little bit of spunk in his game too, and creativity offensively. That's the thing Roy had that we're still waiting on for Krebs. I don't know. Maybe he sees a little bit of a Derek Roy clone in Peyton Krebs. So maybe he likes him. We'll see what he thinks of him. For now, though, I think it's Lafferty, but that's a battle. Battle number 4, onto the blue line. Top 4 defensemen. If you look at the Sabres blue line right now, I feel comfortable anointing Dahlin, Owen Power, and Bo Byram. Those are all going to be 20-plus minute a night, top 4 defensemen on the Buffalo Sabres. Who's the 4th guy? Does it have to be Mattias Samuelsson? I don't know that it has to be Samuelsson. Samuelsson is paid like a top 4 defenseman. Samuelsson has performed like a top 4 defenseman. But 2 things. 1, he can't stay healthy. And 2, he is a left shot. And does Lindy Ruff, I don't know how Lindy likes this type of stuff. I don't care about having 4 left shot defensemen in my top 4. But does Lindy? Does Lindy want to have 1 right shot guy in his top 4? To me, it is Mattias Samuelsson against Henri Jokiharju. Jokiharju would be the guy for me. Right shot D, thought he had a bounce back season last year, looking pretty good, and that would allow Samuelsson to play on the 3rd pair on the left side and not have to move somebody to the right. And one other point about Samuelsson. If he's playing fewer minutes, maybe something more like 17, 18 minutes a night rather than 20 plus, Do they feel like that's a better workload for him? Do they feel like they're more likely to keep him healthy if they were to do that? Again, this is one where I'll separate my own opinion from what the coaches might do. I think the coaches could put Samuelsson in the third pair. I would not. I would not worry about the injuries. I would not worry about the left shot, right shot thing. I would just put my best four defensemen in the top four. And to me, I think Mattias Samuelsson is a better defenseman than Henri Jokiharju is, even with Jokiharju taking a step forward last year. I would put Samuelsson in the top four, but I do think it is him. It's Samuelsson versus Jokiharju for that fourth spot in the top two pairs. And finally, the final camp battle to look forward to for the Sabres is backup goaltender. Now, I don't expect this to be much of a battle. The only reason I'm even mentioning it, because to me, it's almost nuts to think about this as a battle. I think Devon Levi should be the runaway favorite. It shouldn't even be a thought. It shouldn't even be a competition. I think Devon Levi, by the numbers, was one of the better goalies in hockey last year, given what he faced in terms of quality of shots, scoring chances, and whatnot. He then went down and was the number 2 goaltender in the AHL last year. Devon Levi is absolutely ready, in my opinion, to play 30 to 35 games for the Buffalo Sabres this year. But Elliot Friedman did say last week on his podcast, the quote, they've got to figure out who's going to be the backup to Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Could it be Devon Levi? Could it be James Reimer? Friedman mentioned the name Felix Sandstrom. You might be thinking right now, listening to this show, who the bleep is Felix Sandstrom? And I wouldn't blame you for not knowing who Felix Sandstrom is. He is a player the Buffalo Sabres signed in free agency to a 2-way contract. In my opinion, and I'm not wavering off this at all, but in my opinion, absolutely to be a Rochester American. And maybe to be a split of time with James Reimer in Rochester. Sandstrom, to me, isn't really a serious thought to this. Friedman mentioned his name, though. To me, it's Reimer. And Reimer, remember the thing about him was this confusion when they signed him. Was it a one-way contract or was it a two-way contract? And the contract, I'm just actually even double checking it myself because I had it written down what it was. And now I am forgetting. Reimer, I believe, signed a one-way contract with the Buffalo Sabres. No, it is a two-way. Okay, double check that. It originally was reported as one-way and then fixed it to two-way. That's what happened. So it is a two-way contract for James Reimer. But I guess I can't throw it out the window, the idea that he could be the number 2 goaltender. And here's why. I hate it because I think Levi's great and I want to see Levi in the NHL. But the Sabres signed a goaltender in James Reimer who is 36 years old, who has not played in the American Hockey League since the Sabres were in the playoffs. 2011. 10-11 is the last season Reimer appeared in the American Hockey League. And Reimer's coming off a year that wasn't that bad. He played 25 games in Detroit. And with the Red Wings, he had a .904 save percentage. You've seen a lot worse than that in the NHL. That is better save percentage-wise than Levi, but advanced numbers, Levi blew Reimer out of the water. .904 save percentage was number 1 on the Red Wings last year, among guys that played at least more than one game. So, veteran player, nearing retirement. Did he sign up to play in Rochester, New York? Did he? I guess that's the thesis, right? The idea that Reimer's pushing for the backup spot is, you think he signed here just to play for the Amherst? He signed here because he thinks he could get the backup job. I hear you. I just can't believe they're not going to put Devon Levi in there. I think Devon Levi, you got to put Devon Levi in there. It'll be nuts to me if Devon Levi is not the number 2 goaltender and James Reimer is instead. It should be Levi, but keep an eye on it. We'll see what we get in terms of workload in the preseason and also what Lindy says about it between those two. So Levi and Reimer, and then, all right, Felix Sandstrom, who's played, by the way, 30 games in the NHL in his entire career as he's about to turn 28 years old this season. Sandstrom, that's the one other guy. 880 save percentage, by the way, for Felix Sandstrom. That guy's winning the backup goalie spot. Come on, Friedman. What are we doing? He's not. All right, that is going to do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. If you got a battle at camp that you're wondering about that I didn't mention here that you think is a battle, let me know. If you got a thought on any of the 5 battles, maybe pick your winner or you'd like to see win each of the 5. Be sure to check out our text line, text it in. And if you're not a subscriber already, join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres. Well, all right. That is going to do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. As always, thanks for making us your first listen every day. Now that you're done with us, go find Locked On NHL, where the local experts will keep you updated daily on all the biggest storylines ahead of the season. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.